became ill with cancer in his senior year of high school and died in November of 1972. Bill was a star high school athlete and a prodigy in mathematics and physics. He was headed to the University of Maryland on a scholarship. His daughter Dorothy, named after his mother, died last May. Dorothy had become a registered nurse after struggling with dyslexia as a child. She has two beautiful children, Julie and Mark. Julie and her kind husband, Buddy, proudly made my father a great grandparent with their two beautiful children, Henry and Harper Callahan. In his later years, my father became an accomplished model airplane builder and greatly enjoyed his time with the Sunday Flyers in Middle River. I know there's a couple of his flying club members with him. Can they stand up so we acknowledge his flying club members, please? Thank you. Thank you very much. The basement became an airplane hangar, and he spent many hours expertly building new planes and repairing crashed planes as well. He was a meticulous man, always well-dressed and groomed, and paid close attention to detail. His basement work area, clothes dresser, and garage were always neatly organized and well kept. His shoes were always shined as well. He built the two-car garage he loved shortly after the death of my brother. We dug the foundation by pick and shovel, laid the foundation block by block, and built the walls brick by brick. I just did the carrying, he did all this. He did all the labor, I was just a laborer, that's all it was. Back to my grandfather's roots as a laborer, but I was employed. I worked for food. His brickwork was that of a skilled mason. It was amazing, his brickwork. If you ever looked at the garage, it looked like a skilled mason did it. My father was also a tremendous helper, and he loved to come to the aid of those in need, as we've heard from other people today. He loved to help his neighbors and would routinely remove the snow from their sidewalks with a snowblower. I remember as a child that during a bad drought, he refilled the dry well of the immigrant farmer who lived behind our house on his small subsistence farm. He depended on that water for his produce and chickens, and my father knew that. He also truly loved volunteering in Franklin Square, no matter the role, which others here have talked about and attested to. I'd like all his Franklin Square colleagues, could you please stand up, whether you're a volunteer or you work there, because we're going to do a little cheer for him. I know you like this. So we're going to do on three, we're going to go Franklin Square for my father, because I know that's what he would love. That would make him happy. So everyone, you can see all the people from Franklin Square that are here today. It's amazing. But on three, we're going to say go Franklin Square. 1, 2, 3. Go Franklin Square! Thank you. Thank you. He loved St. Michael's Church as well, and it was his request, and gave him great comfort that his funeral service would be held here. He dearly loved and doted on his 6 grandchildren, Julie, Mark, Rachel, Aaron, Mitchell, and Loren. If there was an event in their life, he and Mom were there. Again, on his deathbed, it was his great disappointment that he could not be here to continue to help them and watch them prosper. He was a busy guy. I must also say that he relished all of the fantastic meals my lovely wife Loretta has prepared for him over the last 28 years of our marriage. He was very thankful for my wife and told me how wonderful a mom and daughter she was. Everything she cooked was his favorite. Dad had a great appetite and loved to eat anything and everything. I must admit I inherited the eating everything part. Now let's talk about that smile. His magnificent smile would light up a room and made everyone feel welcome. He always greeted everyone, family, friends, and strangers alike, with that broad and so very genuine smile. Loren Smile Baker. Amazing. My father taught us many things, most often by actions and deeds, and sometimes with careful words of wisdom. He was our supporter, our helper, our cheerleader. He could get very loud at sporting events, let me tell you though. Tom Genders here, my childhood friend, he could be witness to that. He would really get excited. He was our caregiver, he was our teacher. We will always miss him, but we'll cherish our memories we have as we live the life that he so dearly wanted for us. We will miss his famous German potato salad and his shrimp creole on Christmas Eve. I must admit that he gave me great comfort when he would tell me how sincerely pleased he was with our family and the man I had become. like to say. Dad, we are so proud of all that you did in life and of all the love and kindness you gave to the people you touched. And you won't have to worry, Dad. You have prepared us well. When we fall, we will get back up. When we fail, we will try again. We will work diligently to get the job done. We will give back to our community, and we will love our family and friends and care for those in need. Dad, you ran the race exceedingly well, and we are ready to take and carry the race baton that he loved to carry. I hope you enjoy this American Dream story about my father as much as I did telling it. I want you to know that he has nothing but love and the very best wishes and hopes for each and every one of you. We love you, Dad. God bless.
I'm Loren's granddaughter, and I'm just going to share one that I worked for him when he was getting open heart surgery when I was in high school. It's called There Is a Man. There is a man who is always there for me, supporting me, guiding me, whatever it may be. There is a man I could never live without whom my life's dead. No support I would hold, no guidance I would fail. There is a man I hope everyone has. I couldn't imagine a life without one. No laughter, no smiles. This man is a grandfather who brings support, guidance, laughter, and smiles into a life with me. Thank you.
more incredible was he would feel it himself, even if it was not something he personally was going through. He paid no mind to the pettiness, but instead focused on love and graciousness. He's always taken on the role as the protector. My grandfather's life of devotion and selflessness will forever live on in my memory and the memory of those who knew him. He will be missed. I will miss his buttermilk waffles, his passion, his freshly cooked cantaloupe every morning on our family vacations to the beach, and even his grouchy days. I will miss so much more, but find peace in knowing his pure and innocent heart will live on forever. And I know he's the only man in my lifetime I will ever be able to say, happily watch Nicholas Sparks movies with me.
In the past few weeks, there's been horrendous news of loss of life in tornadoes, earthquakes, mudslides, train wrecks, and to those of us gathered here, the quiet loss of Loren Baker to cancer. I am Susie Tift. Many of you know me as Roz's daughter. Some of you know me as Lou's daughter. Mr. Baker, as I affectionately called him all the time, was my dear friend. My family, the Hines, met the Baker family starting with Lois probably 40 years ago. At first, my dad and I thought Loren was kind of goofy. After all, could anybody be that jolly, that cheerful, that smiley all the time? 40 years later, I can assure you, yes, he could. Pretty much all the time. It wasn't too long before our new friend became our chosen family. Not father, brother, uncle, or cousin, but family nonetheless. Togetherness is a very important ingredient in family life, and we had plenty of it. There were Ocean City vacations, escapes to Disney World, boat rides on the Chesapeake, trips to Deep Creek Lake. There were Christmases and Thanksgiving dinners together. There were Super Bowl Sundays, Sunday afternoons at the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra, Saturday nights at Cockpit and Court. Birthday celebrations. Both my dad and Mr. Baker were Capricorns and celebrated their birthdays together in January. And then there was Thursday, men's night out, typically at Italian Gardens in Kenilworth Mall, on buy one, get one free coupons. But the last of which was at Pappas in Parkville, where another man, good son John Baker, had the honor and great responsibility of dining with those two old goats. We were around each other so much, I think, that certain family traits began to rub off on one another. There was the compulsive, obsessive approach to solving crossword puzzles, for example. The only difference there was that the Hine family had 2, 3, even 4 unfinished Baltimore Sun crosswords going at the same time, while Mr. Baker always completed his by the second day, when that day's edition of the Baltimore Sun printed the answer key, making it a whole lot easier to fill in those blanks. In recent years, we shared an obsession for Jeopardy and compared notes daily, not only on answers and questions, but also, and more importantly, on the idiosyncrasies, peculiarities, and just plain weird behaviors of the contestants. Just this week, after an Celebrity Jeopardy! I called my mother to discuss the show. She answered the phone lamenting, "Oh, you're not Loren." A trait he shared with my mother, but not with my father or me, was the ability to talk nonstop through any show on television. My mother, who has a short attention span and can't follow a storyline for very long, loved that ongoing commentary. Drove me crazy. But I must admit, I learned a whole lot of football from him. I'm very grateful for the devoted care and patient compassion Mr. Baker gave to my dad, even after he himself was sick. Only a few days before he went into hospice, Loren was making arrangements with me to take Lou to the Sports Museum at Camden Yards. Just one more item on his bucket list of things to do together. But time ran out. Mr. Baker was a man of faith and faithfulness, not just because he went to church every Sunday, but because he lived it. In his relationships with his wife, his children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and his many, many friends. He showed us how to live with love, with compassion, and with hope. In the end, Mr. Baker showed us how to die, with love, with compassion, and with hope.
Today I'm going to be reading a poem that was actually written by my late uncle when he was fighting cancer. And it's entitled The Message of Life. Well, I've seen the sea, and I know that is blue. And that's how I know that blue is blue. Yes, and I've seen the grass, and that's how I know it's green. Well, and know that it's green, and that's how I know that green is green. Now, brothers and sisters, please heed this poem. It comes from the north like a siren song. It comes from the south like a banshee's wail. And it sings a song of love and life. Well, I've seen the sunset, and I know that it's red. And that's why I know red, light red. And orange and yellows and purples too. All sing the song of life. Now, brothers and sisters, please heed this call. It comes from the north like a siren song. It comes from the south like a banshee's wail. And it sings a song of love and of life. Now, maybe you're wondering, how come I see all that is fresh and all that is clean? Well, I can tell you, my brothers, I've seen the pits, black as the devil and so hot you can't spit. And I've seen the gates, and I've heard the angels call, and I've heard the trumpets, Gabriel's song. Now, out of these depths, I've raised myself up with the help of my friends. Thousands of men, with the strong hand of God. I pulled myself through, and now for a living I can see so many. So that's why I see colors so true, and love and beauty, and all that I do. And that's why life is so sweet to me. For death's dark portals allow me to see. Now, brothers and sisters, please heed this call. It comes from my heart to you, one and all. And I hope that the message is pointing. For this is a message of life. I'm going to try and compose myself. I know my grandfather, he told me not to fuss about it, so we're going to try and do that. But I've heard so many people talk about how he was always trying to be better. He was always trying to do things better to improve He always cared about the people around him, and he was always trying to find out new ways to do everything he could to take care of them. And his final moments with me, he talked about his life and what he had done and what he had hoped to achieve. And he had one final request to me. And he asked me, he told me, he said, Mitchell, I want you to be better. I want you. But don't do it for me. Do it because you can. Do it because you have to be. And that's kind of who he was. He was the kind of man that always trusted me. And he showed that everything he did. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitch. Thank you very much. I forgot one thing in my little discussion about his biography. I have a letter here that he signed that says, I hereby certify that I am Loren Howard Baker, also known as Loren Howard Wariwoto. Signed, Loren Howard Baker, appeared before me this 11th day of May, 1965. Loren Howard Baker, Adele L. Geneste, Notary Public. And this was written in 1965 that he was saying he was the same guy that was on this birth certificate, which is pretty amazing to me, that story. So I enjoyed that. Well, I guess we're going to end with another poem, which the people who know me know that I'm not much of a literary person. I'm a science guy. And science is what I know, science is what I do, what I've always done. So, but as I sat there taking care of my father the final weeks of his life, I got to look at him and think about him a lot, and I got to take care of him. I got to brush his teeth, and I put moisturizer on his lips, and I held his hand. He had beautiful hands. His hands were just amazingly immaculate, his fingers. He was such a neat, not just a neat guy, totally the opposite of myself. But it was amazing for me to be able to have the grace to take care of him, and he was so gracious to receive it, because he was a very proud man, and I'm just grateful I had that time to help take care of him and provide the same kind of care that he gave to everyone else. So that was a blessing to me. The hardest thing I think I did, one of the hardest things was I had to take him out of the house he had lived in for 53 years, the house that he built the garage, the house that he raised his family in. I had to take him out in a wheelchair, and I know that we paused in the house as we were heading out the door, because I didn't want him going out in a stretcher. I said, "Now we're going to go out in a wheelchair, Dad." And that was the hardest thing that I think I ever did, to take him out of there. It was something he loved, but I saw him kind of take in the moment, and he was looking at everything, and he paused, and he kind of bit his lip, and he said, "This was it," kind of thing. So I guess this is it, John. And then I proceeded to take him out, and then we kind of paused in front of the house as he looked at everything, and he told me, "One thing you got to do is you got to send me a picture of this tree blossoming when it blossoms in the hospital," because he had planted a new tree there that he wanted to look at when it blossomed. Unfortunately, he didn't get to see that either. But that was a very difficult time. And the one thing he said to Mitchell is, he said, "I want you to be the best man you can be," and that sort of thing, but he said, "I'm not demanding it of you," he told. He made sure it's clear it wasn't a demand. He did not demand anything of anyone. He just encouraged people. So it wasn't a demand, it was an encouragement. So, I'm sitting there at night when he was falling asleep in the hospital bed, and I'm sitting there thinking, for some reason I wanted to write a poem about him. And I'm a science guy. I write science stuff, and I don't do poetry. And the last poem I wrote while I was a little kid in Little League Baseball, as every child I tried different sports, and I remember playing baseball. I wrote this poem. I wrote it on my baseball glove, which I still have in a box somewhere. We moved in a box somewhere. I have this glove that says, out in the outfield so deep, out in the outfield you fall asleep. And that's what I wrote. That was my Little League Baseball experience. And that was my poetry experience. But then I'm sitting there in hospice, and this is, and I had a faith journey with my father. He was a very faithful guy. He loved God, and he loved his church, and we did a lot of praying together, and he explained to me about his faith, and we did communion together. So it was a faith journey for me. I didn't, he's got me on that one. Dad got me on a faith journey. And so then, the very last week, he and my father, he was like friends with all the hospice nurses. I mean, everybody liked him. He was like knowing them all. They were all, loving him after just like a couple days. Well, one gentleman, his name was Bodie, he remarked to me, he goes, Mr. John, your father is a very strong man. And he commented that his middle name should be Loren Strong Baker. So I was kind of like, it just kind of struck me because the week before that, I smiled at him and I said, I had written this poem earlier in the week, which I had in draft form. I read it to my father, and he really seemed to take pleasure in what I wrote. So here's what I wrote before this gentleman even said that, by just kind of sitting in the hospital bed at night in the chair looking at my dad resting. And I said, if you see someone falling, reach out to them with your strong hands. If you see someone on their knees, lift them with your strong arms. If you see someone tired and weak, carry them with your strong shoulders. If you see someone crying in despair, hug them with your strong embrace. If you see someone lost, guide them with your strong voice. If you see someone lonely and sad, comfort them with your strong family. If you see someone burdened with problems, assist them with your strong mind. If you see someone working, help them with your strong back. If you see a joyous occasion, celebrate it with your strong laughter. If you see someone searching for God, nourish them with your strong faith. If you see someone in need of love, fill them with your strong heart. And always, always, when you see someone, anyone, greet them with your incredible, strong smile. And that was my tribute to my father, Loren Howard Baker, the strongest man I know. His son, John E. Baker, and I wrote it pretty much on the day of his death, May 3rd, 2015. So I can't believe I wrote that because I've never written anything like that before, so I feel like I was divinely inspired to do that for him. And I read the rough draft of it to him, and he really enjoyed that. But that was who he was. He was a very strong man to have lived through the things that he suffered in life, and the loss of his children, and all the obstacles in his early youth. And so I looked at it, that's all I could see was strength. So that's how I memorialized him, and that's what that guy saw within 2 days. That nurse, he was such a gentleman, and he saw that my father was such a strong man. So Mom, you had an incredible journey, incredible voyage, and with a man who loved you more than he loved life. And that's all all the time when I was with him, he kept going, your mother, I gotta, if I don't take care of you, I'm in big trouble. So that's all he kept on doing was, promise me that I'd take care of you and all that sort of thing. So I told him I would, and he was very comforting with that. So with that poem, I don't know if I have anything else to say other than thank you very much again for coming today. And Pastor has some closing comments for us.